Sometime late in the war, in the woods of the Ardennes or the rubble of a captured German strongpoint, you would find an American infantryman rolling a dead or surrendered enemy officer with a very specific, quiet thoroughness. He was bypassing what headquarters actually wanted. He left the documents and maps in the pockets. He ignored the survival rations. He had no use for captured ammunition. He was searching for a single piece of contraband that fueled an entire underground battlefield economy. Sergeants traded rations, watches, and rumored passes to the rear for one. Officers wrote letters home bragging about acquiring one. Men deliberately exposed themselves to crossfire and took fatal risks in the brief, reckless seconds required to push forward and strip a corpse. The object driving this behavior was the Pistole Parabellum 1908, the Luger, with its unmistakable profile, deeply blued steel, and checkered walnut grips. It became the single most desired souvenir of the Second World War. Why Allied troops willingly risked courts-martial and enemy fire for a delicate, aging sidearm instead of practical survival gear is a question that requires looking closely at the weapon itself. The answer lies in the intersection of mechanical perfection, sheer scarcity, and the psychological weight of taking the ultimate symbol of victory directly off the enemy. The Luger was a product of peacetime engineering, machined from solid steel to watchmaker tolerances. That precision is most visible in the action. Instead of a sliding block, the Luger uses a toggle lock, two articulated links sitting flat on top. When the gun fires, the breech travels backward. The toggle assembly hits a ramp, snaps violently upward to eject the shell, and folds back down. It is a brilliant mechanical event occurring inches from the shooter's eye, chambering the next round. Compare that intricate cycle to the standard Allied sidearm. The Colt M1911 relies on a heavy, blocky slide cycling back and forth. It is highly effective, but entirely utilitarian. The Luger's grip was angled precisely at 35 degrees from vertical. When a soldier raised his arm, the barrel naturally aligned exactly where he was looking. Men found they could hit targets purely by instinct, without even aiming down the sights. It fired the 9mm Parabellum, a flat-shooting, fast bottleneck cartridge designed specifically for this pistol in 1902, which went on to become the most widely used handgun round on the planet. To an American soldier carrying mass-produced, roughly stamped wartime gear, picking up a Luger felt like picking up a piece of mechanical art. That exact craftsmanship created a massive logistical liability. The Luger was far too expensive and too slow to manufacture for a military fighting a massive war on two fronts. By 1942, Germany needed to rapidly arm hundreds of thousands of men. They abandoned precision machining and relied on relatively unskilled labor and cheaper materials to meet frontline quotas. The Army replaced the Luger with the Walther P38, a sidearm designed for welded steel and mass production. By the end of the war, almost every German rear area soldier seemed to be carrying one. But veteran German officers stubbornly refused to give up their Lugers, holding on to the elegant pistols as a clear mark of rank and status. This dynamic dictated battlefield bragging rights. Capturing a P38 meant you overran a common soldier. Finding a pristine pre-war Luger with matching numbers proved you had bested a high-ranking commander. Germany's manufacturing constraints unintentionally turned the Luger into a rare commodity, making it the undeniable physical proof of an Allied soldier's combat prowess. Down in the freezing mud of the European theater, this desire for a mechanical trophy collided with the grim realities of infantry combat. Basic discipline frequently broke down. Allied soldiers fought each other, sometimes throwing actual punches over the right to loot a looter from a fresh enemy casualty. It became a severe tactical headache for command. Non-commissioned officers had to explicitly order their squads to stop charging entrenched machine gun positions, simply to feed their trophy hunting. The souvenir trade carried an even darker toll. Memoirs and battlefield reports document instances where German troops trying to surrender were executed rather than captured, entirely so their captors could strip them of their sidearms without interference. The men doing this were driven by an urge to completely strip a previously terrifying enemy of their most personal possession. The obsession with George Luger's mechanical masterpiece created a vicious shadow economy that routinely overrode military ethics and cost lives. The irony is that the Luger was far from the best combat weapon of the war. Its beautiful toggle lock action was mechanically fragile, highly sensitive to trench and prone to jamming. But the men fighting their way across Europe did not care about its reliability in mud. To them, the Luger was a tangible, heavy piece of the world's most feared military regime, scaled down to a size that could be quietly slipped into a rucksack. When the war ended, thousands of these pistols traveled across the Atlantic, moving from the blood-soaked fields of the Ardennes into the quiet safety of American closets, attics, and gun safes. Today, civilian shooters meticulously maintain them, and a massive collector's market traces individual serial numbers. Pristine SS-marked variants and long-barreled artillery models now command tens of thousands of dollars. For many VIs, the pistol was the only part of the war they ever showed to their families. They came home unable to put the rest of the experience into words. The friends killed, the towns destroyed, and the small, dark acts of the souvenir hunt. The Luger became a repository for the parts of the war that soldiers kept to themselves. Sitting in a felt-lined case, it represented the stories, the compromises, and the survival that many men never quite brought themselves to tell.